Morning everybody, afternoon, evening. The Leggling here again, so it's a Tuesday the 22nd of March today, so it's another 5 vinyls for you. Another mixed bag, so I'll just get on straight on with it. I hope that this internet connection is okay. And I do apologise for the previous videos because they weren't very clever, but I'm not very big on the tech side. So, okay, so we'll get straight on with it then. The first one I've got for you today, number 1 of the 5, is the marvellous Peter Tosh. This is Bush Doctor, his 3rd album, and this is the one where he went from Columbia to Rolling Stones Records, because both Mick and Keith are on here. And the single that was taken from this album is You Gotta Walk But Don't Look Back, and that's got both Mick Jagger and Keith Richards singing harmonies, and Keith's on guitar as well. For those people, this came out in 1978, by the way. For those people that don't know, Peter Tosh was originally part of Bob Marley's Wailers. He decided to leave and go his own path in 1976, which was a shame because I thought that Bob Marley and Peter worked really well together, actually. But this album is extremely good. It really does show the rhythm section of Sly and Robbie Shakespeare and Sly Dunbar. Fantastic rhythm section, who have played on so many records over the years by a vast array of artists. But so their influence really is all over this album. Very popular. This was, I think it got into the top 20 of the charts, and for a reggae album, because this is what it is. It's reggae with a lot of melody here. Really good on the ear. It's not dub or anything like that. It's reggae pop music, really, to be perfectly honest. There they are, the rest of the band. He had a great band at this time. Like I said, Sly and Robbie. I love that cover. Love that photograph. So this is Bush Doctor then. Probably Peter's most popular album, I would say. The only one he did for Rolling Stones Records. So 2 tracks that I would recommend for you. Let's have a look. I'm the Toughest. I think that was a single. This is the 3rd track on the first side. And the other one I would go for is Stand Firm. Great, 2 great songs. Not to take away the 9 tracks on the albums. 9 tracks here. Really good. The last track, Creation, is a very long, drawn-out piece. Very good as well. But it was produced by the Glimmertons, this one, so they, the Rolling Stones put a lot of their dosh into this. And in many ways, a year before, obviously, Bob had his massive hit with Exodus, and the Rolling Stones wanted a little bit of that, so they put the money in to try and bring forward to the masses reggae music, and this was a big reggae album, and it's great. It's as good as anything that Bob Marley did in his lifetime. It's a great record, this one. So the first one then, Bush Doctor by Peter Tosh. The next one is certainly my favourite from this band. A lot of people have their favourites from this amazing band. Lost their drummer a couple of years ago, very sad. So we're talking progressive hard rock here. And it is the marvellous Rush A Farewell to Kings. This is a marvellous, marvellous record, my favourite. There they are in all the glory in 1977. Long hair and beards and very hippie looking, serious looking young men. Great album, this one. My favourite track actually is on here, and that track is called Xanadu. It's certainly one of my recommendations for you. But you know, Xanadu is a long track, and the other long track is Cygnus X1, which they progressed on to the next two albums. So it's a long suite of music, that one. However, apart from Xanadu, which I must recommend to you, it's a great, great song, and I'll tell you why in a minute, is Closer to the Heart. And that's a very popular Rush song as well. So this music is very intense, quite heavy, but quite classical, progressive rock. That's what probably it is. Very influenced by one of the albums I showed you yesterday, Close to the Edge by Yes. And when you listen to Xanadu, that's very reminiscent of that particular song. They were very reminiscent of Yes, very influenced by Yes. Geddy Lee's voice, the singer, very high. So perhaps for some people it's an acquired taste, you know. Some people don't like his voice. I do. I think it's great. A very high soprano voice. So we've got this Xanadu, which is 11 minutes, and it's a great track. And Closer to the Heart is just under 3 minutes, actually, that one. But there's lots of great percussion on here by Neil Peart, and Neil writes all the lyrics and most of the music on a lot of the albums, which is very unusual for a drummer. But he was a one-off, you know. He's sadly missed, one of the best drummers in the world, actually. And a very, very sad loss. And this Cygnus X1 then, book one, continues on over the next two albums. That's another 10-minute track. The album is not particularly long. It's just over half an hour, actually. But a great listen, a great, great listen. You've got some fantastic guitar playing by Alex Lifeson. Again, wonderful, wonderful guitar player. Doesn't get the credit that he deserves, actually. Geddy Lee, apart from singing, plays keyboards and bass. So they are a trio. And you would never believe it when you listen to certainly an album like this. And then, excuse me, when you go and see them live, you never think that they would be able to produce what they do on record, but believe me, they do. Fantastic musicians. What they're going to do in the future, no one really knows. I know that both Geddy and Alex have ventured off and done a little bit, but there's lots of talk of, are they going to carry on together with another drummer? I really don't think that's going to happen, but we shall see. We shall see. So then, my second choice is A Farewell to Kings with the glorious Xanadu. Take some time to listen to that one. It's a great, great song, and Closer to the Heart. Two very well-known Rush tracks. So, A Farewell to Kings then. Number three, again, a very, very well-known album. It's not their biggest seller, but I think it's probably the most influential album that they've done. Certainly the most well-known album that they've done, and it is a landmark in musical modern pop history, in my opinion, and it's Talking Heads, and the album is called Remain in Light. It's another album that everybody just remembers one song for, and I'll show you the single, and it's this one, Once in a Lifetime. That was the massive hit, and in a lot of ways, um, they're just remembered for that song, and it's just a sad shame, really, because this album is so much more than that one song. Don't get me wrong, it's a great song. This album is very much influenced by African rhythms. There they are again. That's the mad backside to the cover. But very much influenced by African music and electronic music as well. Brian Eno, this is his third album with the band, and perhaps a lot of people would say his best one. So his influence from an ambient perspective is all over this. But you've got some fantastic musicians on here, not least Adrian Bellew, who's a great guitar player. Before he joined the live version of Talking Heads, he played with Frank Zappa, and he was part of David Bowie's touring band. Went on to play live with these people, and then joined the second incarnation of King Crimson. Great guitar player. Nona Hendrix is on here. Robert Palmer, John Hassell, who's worked a lot. He's a trumpeter who's worked a lot, again, in the ambient field, but very African influenced ambient music he's been involved in, so he's on here. So his influence is on the record as well. Recorded in the Bahamas, so they had free reign, and they weren't under any time restrictions really by the record company at the time, so they had time to produce what they thought was the best music that they could produce at the time. This is a fabulous album. 2 tracks then to recommend to you. Houses in Motion. It's a great one. And the other one, Cross-Eyed and Painless, I think. That's the other one I would recommend. But every track, believe me, every track is a great track on this album. The Overload, brilliant. It's a very ambienty piece. And then you've got Born Under Punches, The Heat Goes On, which is really an African percussion dance piece. It's fabulous. The Great Curves, and another fabulous track. I could name them all. They're so good. But those are the 2 I've gone for then. Houses in Motion and Cross-Eyed and Painless. Great pieces of music. After this, there isn't a bad Talking Heads album. If you don't know this band, this is probably one of the best albums to start with, actually, because before this, they were very. The 4 of them were they've always been a 4-piece, but before this album, they were just 4. They didn't bring any other musicians in, and from the second album on until this, Brian Eno was involved in the band, so his influences were all over it, but they were very stark and very punky in a way, to be perfectly honest. And then the last one before this was very funky, and this album took that a step further. So they brought the African influences in, along with the funk and the soul and everything else that's all over this album. Very experimental, melodic, great on the ear, very dancey, very up and a happy album, this one. So this is my third choice then, of marvellous Talking Heads, Remaining Light. Fourth one then. Okay, another classic album. I think most of these you probably are aware of. And I know that one of my friends, this is one of his Desert Island discs. I thought the one before this was slightly better, but I thought I'd show you this because it's got their main hits on it. And this is Orchestra Maneuvers in the Dark, or OMD, Architecture and Morality. This is I think this is the most popular album that they made together. Love this Savile cover like that, and then you've got another image on the back there. But this is electro pop music. That's the only way you can describe this. So synth, very much influenced, and they are not afraid to say it, by Kraftwerk. But where Kraftwerk were very experimental in the way that they approach the music, this is electronic pop music. This is proper songs with an electronic background. This is great stuff. This is great stuff. Their big hits from here were two versions of Joan of Arc, and the other one that they had off here was Souvenir. Two great singles. There they are. That's Paul Humphries and I can never remember his name. Andrew McCluskey. It's the singer and the bass player. But there's some great songs. It's a lovely album. You know, again, it's very upbeat. However, there is some great ballads on here as well. They were this is their third album, I should say. And by this time, they really had mastered their instruments. So they were producing really great electronic songs, electronic-based pop songs, and they'd mastered their craft by this particular time. Two songs then. She's Leaving, which should have been a single. It is a gorgeous song. So if you've got time to go and investigate, She's Leaving. Fantastic song. Fantastic song. And the other one is Georgia. That's another great song. But I have to mention, I shouldn't do this, but there is a third one as well, and that's called Sealand, and that's the longest track on the album. Beautiful ballad, all about a power station around just outside Liverpool. Great track. So, but really, it's just two. So, She's Leaving and Georgia. That's the two tracks I would recommend from this album. And indeed, it's a little bit like Talking Heads. I think if you want to dip your toe into finding out all about what OMD are about, you cannot go wrong with this album. It's really an album that could have, it's just chock full of great songs, that nearly every song, perhaps apart from Sealand, could have been a single. That's how good this album is. Very good indeed. So that's Architecture and Morality from OMD, or Orchestra Maneuvers in the Dark. Right, my last one then, we're sticking, that's early 80s, this is slap bang in the 70s, and this is an album really. I'm not understating this. That this should really be in everybody's collection who's a music lover, because it's such a masterpiece. It's such a classic album. The man had such a run of albums in the early 70s to the mid 70s. His run of albums were just magnificent, and this is one of his best. And it's the marvelous Stevie Wonder Inner Visions. This is a masterpiece. It's the only way I can describe this album. If you don't know Stevie Wonder and you want to know, what his real peak period was all about, he had so many great albums from 1971 through to 1979 into 1980. Then pick this. This is the one to go for. It is just a great representation of what this marvelous musician is all about. That's the backside of the album. It's grateful, great stuff. There you go. What we got on here then? Well, this is a soul, funk, jazz, in many ways experimental masterpiece. The big one on here was many actually, but He's Mr. Know-It-All. It's such a classic song, along with Living for the City. Now, Living for the City on here, a lot of people remember that single, but it's been cut on here. You're looking at nearly 11 minutes. So it's a long drawn out piece, but that piece of music, Living for the City, is all about race discrimination in America. Well, not just America, all over the world at the time in the 70s, there was a lot of race prejudice in that period of history. And Stevie writes this amazing tune all about that. And it really does take you on a journey. It's a very long drawn out piece, but it's a fantastic piece of music. Every track is literally a winner, and the way that each track merges into one another is just fabulous. It's just 9 tracks on here, all great. So, what to pick as a recommendation for you? Yeah, I think there's 2 tracks, and they're both on the second side, and that is Higher Ground, fabulous track, and Don't You Worry About a Thing. Those 2 tracks are amazing. Don't get me wrong, the other tracks, and I have to read them all because they're so good. Too High, Visions, Living for the City, I've already mentioned, is the longest track. Golden Lady, that's the first side. Second side, Higher Ground, again, it's my recommendation for you. Jesus, Children of America. All in Love is Fair is just a beautiful ballad. Don't You Worry About a Thing, and He's Mr. Know-It-All. I could recommend the whole album, and really, that's probably the best way to do it. But those 2 tracks, I think I would recommend for you. The main thing is, go and please check. If you don't know this album, go and check it out. Yes, it's soul, it's pop, it's funk. It's very experimental with Living for the City. It's got everything in there. You don't have to like just one genre of music to like this album, and it's one of these albums that's timeless. This could have been recorded today, and I guarantee that if one of the tracks would be released as a single today and you didn't know what it was, it would be a hit. That's how good this album is. So there we are. That's my last selection for today. Guys and girls, I just hope this internet connection is okay. I'm led to believe that everybody in the house is out, so it's just me on the internet, because I do think it's the internet connection which was causing the problems with the quality of the sound and the picture. I just hope it's okay today. Okay, have a glorious day. It is beautiful out there. I've just come back with Snoop, my dog, and we had a lovely, lovely walk. He's conked out on the sofa in the sitting room. So he's had a good walk, so he's going to be having a kip for a couple of hours, I think, to recover. But it is probably, yeah, one of the best days of the year today, weather-wise, in sunny Germany here. So hopefully the weather is as good where you are as it is where I am. Have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Cheers and happy listening.